All right, good morning, everybody. This is James Morse, Tuesday morning's edition of Ask the Master Auto Technician. Everybody that has a car that's newer than 2008 has these inside their wheels. And you say, what are these things right here? This is a tire pressure monitor. This is exactly what it's got a battery in it. And this battery is activated by the speed of the wheel. When it sees the car being driven down the road, it comes to life. And it transmits to your instrument cluster, your dash, what the air pressure is in your tires. Now, not all cars have an instrument cluster that says 35 or 45 pounds of air. Some people just have a light that comes on that says TPMS. And when you see that yellow light come on with a half a tire, you know, a cross section of a tire, people sometimes they get a little upset. They go, oh my God, you know, it was off yesterday, and then I started the car up this morning and now it's on. Well, the reason you started up yesterday and it was off because when you drove the car, it had 35 pounds of air in it. Tires were hot. You let them sit overnight, come back the next morning, you got 30 pounds of air in it maybe. You know, maybe a little less. It makes the light come on. Or, you know, something that says, hey, you got a problem, you need to get it fixed. These are only good for about one lifetime of tires, or about 5 years. That's about how long they last. And a set of tires will last you about 5 years in most people. Some people more, some people less. I got some people that got tires from 2008 still driving their car, and I just look at them and say, you need to get rid of these dangerous tires before you have an accident. But most tires, about every 5-6 years, they go bad. So about every time you get a set of tires, be ready to invest the money it takes to change these right here. Now, the good news is they've dropped in price. These have dropped in price over the last couple of years. These things used to be $200 and $300 a piece. Now they've got them where, and you had to have lots of different ones to cover all the cars out there. Now, they've got just about 99% of the coverage is by one of these, one type of these. And they've got them where they'll talk to each other, and you can marry them to the car, and they'll work like they're supposed to. And they're a much better price than they used to be. I mean, just like I said, a couple years ago, these things were costing us a couple $100. Now we can install them for less than that per tire. It gives you an idea what it runs. It's not cheap. Far from it, you know, but the thing is, it's a safety item. How many people would drive their car without a seatbelt? I don't know very many people that want to drive their car without a seatbelt. How many people would want to drive their car without headlights? I don't know anybody. I saw someone this morning driving down the road, and it's, you know, 5:15, 5:30, and it's dark out there, and they have no headlights on. That's scary, you know, but people, you know, you don't want to drive purposely. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's people out there purposely drive with unsafe cars. They drive with ball joints about ready to fall out. They drive with tires that are more than 5 years old. They drive with TPMS sensor lights on. And then they wonder, why is bad things happening to my car? Well, it's not bad things that happen to your car. You're allowing things to happen to your car because you're not paying attention. You're not keeping up with them. That's the reason your engine's no good anymore, because you didn't bother to check the oil. You know, cars are like relationships. They require constant maintenance. I mean, you know, you can't be married without talking to your wife daily. You can't have kids and have a relationship with your kids without communicating with them. Well, you need to communicate with your car. Too many people just ignore the things that the car is trying to tell them. That yellow light on your dash, you know, the ABS light that's yellow, or maybe the red ABS light, or maybe the red brake light. Maybe I'd have people ignore all those lights. A lot of times I have cars come in here, it looks like a Christmas tree lit up on the dash. Every dadgum light's on it, and they look at it and go, it just happened. I went, really? It just happened? Yeah, it just happened. I said, well, in most cases, not all the lights just happen. You know, you'll get one light on, like a seatbelt light or airbag light, and then a month or two later, you may get a brake light on or a check engine light on. So tell me which ones came on first. I mean, don't lie to me. Tell me which one was on first. Well, I did have a TPMS light on. Okay, all right. So I understand about that. Was there a check engine light on first? Yeah, there was a check engine light on first. Okay. So what happened that made you bring the car in? Well, I got the battery light on and all the other lights came on. Oh, so the battery light came on. That's what made you. Okay, got it. Now we know what we're looking for. So I know what's important to the customer. The customer's importance is make the car want to continue to run. I don't care about the rest of the lights, but if this car is not going to run when that battery light comes on, I know it's just a matter of hours before it stops running, before the battery's completely stone cold dead. And so they bring it in. And sometimes it's as simple as putting an alternator on or changing a belt. And sometimes it's not so simple. But the thing is, when you're having tires, we're talking about safety equipment. not everybody, a lot of people seem to overlook this. They'll put a piece of black tape over it like they do with their check engine light. That's amazing how many pieces of black tape I have seen over check engine lights and tire pressure monitoring lights over the years. People say, I don't need this. I can check my tires myself. I hear that every day. Great. I'm glad you're doing that, sir. No problem whatsoever. So when we do an inspection, what do we find on the tires? Now, the tires are supposed to have 35 pounds of air in them, somewhere in that area. And the guy just told me, I just put them on last week. We find 25 pounds of air in them, 27 pounds of air in them, TPMS lights on. And I said, was the TPMS light on when you brought your car in there to get tires on? Yeah, it was. They didn't want to change. They didn't want to change these. Well, yeah, they tried to get me to change them, but they were $175 a piece. I went, that's not too bad. I said, maybe somewhere in that area is about normal. I said, but it's a safety equipment. You wouldn't want to drive without seat belts. You wouldn't want to drive without old tires. This is something to let you know when you picked up a nail. Not everybody knows when they pick up a nail driving on the highway. Not everybody knows when they get a low tire. I see this all the time. People come in, they'll have 3 tires that are perfect, and they'll have a 4th tire that's only got 15 pounds of air in it. And they never noticed it. They don't have a TPMS that works either. Because they got a piece of black tape over it. That's what I'm saying. So please, be proactive. Don't be reactive. Be proactive on what's wrong with taking care of your car. You wouldn't drive your car and well, I shouldn't say this. Some people drive the car till they see an oil light come on. When they see the oil light come on, then they decide to check their oil. Don't wait that long to check your oil. Don't wait that long to check your coolant. Don't wait that long to check the air in your tires. Any car past 2008 has this on it. 2008 newer has this. There's some cars older than this that have this still. But if your car is a 2008 or newer, it has this in the tires. It was mandated by Congress to be on every car sold in America in 2008 to have this tire pressure monitoring system on there for safety. Now, a lot of people, cars had that before. And some people didn't think anything about it. Some ignored it, just like they do now. But when it became imperative that your life, and you realize that you drive a car in the rain that's 10 pounds low of air tires, and you have a higher chance, a higher probability of hydroplaning and losing control of your car, you may think about how these things work and the importance of them. So what I'm trying to do is encourage you, whether you do it or not, but I hope you do, encourage you to take care of the maintenance on your car. Don't ignore that change oil light, oil change service due soon. I have people running around with those things. They never set them. They never changed their oil either. I had a car come in yesterday, hadn't had the oil changed since 2012. I looked at it, I said, is this oil sticker right? Yeah, it's been broke for the last 3 years. Okay, it's been broke for the last 3 years, but this is 2018. So it's been broke since 2015, and according to the oil sticker, it should have had the oil changed at 2012. Maybe that's the reason it's broken. Come to find out, the reason it was been broken since 2015, the belt snapped on it. Didn't have a belt on it. That's why they couldn't drive it. Car has been parked for 3 years because there's been no belt on it. Now, the tires look brand new on it, but they're dry rotted. They're built from 2012. I can't tell the customer. I say, you do not need to be putting this car on the road. The tires are square too. When I drove the tire, man, they just about beat me to death. And there's a wheel bearing that is just screaming at me. Now, people all the time says that noise just started, or that I just had that happen. Wheel bearings just don't start screaming. This thing's been screaming for years, had to have been. That's probably one of the reasons they parked it when the light came on the dash. They figured that was it, that screaming wheel bearing. They had no idea if there was any correlation to it, but that's what's wrong with it. That's why this car was parked for 3 years. People just didn't want to take a chance and see what was wrong with it. It wasn't that bad. Put a belt in it, serpentine belt, clean up the pulleys, knock all the rust off the pulleys. The rust was so bad on there, we had to sandblast the pulleys. Sandblasted it where we got the rust off, put a belt on there, drove the vehicle. It runs well, shifts well, but boy, you got some noisy square tires and got a noisy, I want to say it's the right front wheel bearing, screaming at me. I mean, it's just amazing how, and all that could have been avoided. And if people had paid attention to their car when the belt started screaming at them, I'm sure this belt was screaming for a long time, the serpentine belt. If they had paid attention to the noise and had it checked and changed, problem, they wouldn't be parked the car. Or that wheel bearing noise, that roaring sound they're seeing down the road that changes pitch when you go slightly to the right or slightly to the left, you may hear a change in pitch because you're loading and unloading the weight on the wheel bearing. If people would pay attention to that, that would have been fixed years and years ago. Or people would pay attention to that smoke when they turn their car off. They see smoke coming out from around their hood. Maybe they need to check the valve cover to make sure to get the oil leaks fixed, because that can be a fire hazard. There's so many things out there that people ignore because they just don't, well, I guess it's just gradual. They don't think it's important. But when you see what I see all the time, I just got back from a trip the other day, and I saw so many cars on the road, especially motorhomes. Now, motorhomes have a tendency not to get driven but maybe once or twice a year, so the tires have a tendency to be older than 5 or 6 years old. I counted 10 motorhomes between here and Ormond Beach, go down there and up, that had flat tires that had separated. The tires had literally come apart. You can see the tread, hanging off the front and back of the tire. And some of them were on the back, some of them were on the front. But the thing that I did notice were they were motorhomes where the tires were coming apart due to old age. That is nothing more than laziness. I know if you're a motorhome owner and you have a flat tire or have a tire that separates, that's on you. That's because you're lazy. That's because you didn't want to take responsibility for your own actions. You wanted to gamble that you could take this trip and be safe. Well, you don't gamble with your family's lives. You don't gamble with other people's lives. So if your tire is more than 5 years old on your motorhome, I don't care if you still got the casting teats on there where it came out of the mold, it's time to get rid of them. I'm not just saying that to hear myself make noise. I'm saying that to keep you on the road safe and alive. I don't know how many times I've seen people lose control of cars because of a rear tire blowing out. Every car you see flipped in the salvage yard, just about every car that you see that's rolled over, I know this is a pretty heavy statement, it's because the tire on the back blew out. That's why cars flip. They don't flip because they just feel like flipping. They're pretty stable, but when you lose a rear tire, you will oversteer. The rear end will try to come around and meet the front end. When that happens, you're flipping, and that's due to oversteering. Now, if a front tire blows out, you understeer. You just go straight. You don't flip. But just about every car that I've seen in a salvage yard that's rolled over, I see evidence or in the past where there was a rear tire had blown out, or when they see them coming into the salvage yard, you can read between the lines what you see. And that's one of the things I've seen over the years. Well, matter of fact, back in the 90s when the Ford Explorer was having problems with Firestone tires, and they kept pointing fingers at each other. Firestone was blaming Ford was blaming Firestone. The point being is the only time the car flipped and rolled is when a rear tire blew out. That was the only time there was death and injuries that I'm aware of is due to a rear tire blowing and the car flipping. That's what happens when you have a rear tire that blows out. So if you got a tire that's more than 5 years old, time to change them. If you got tire pressure monitoring system in them, change them as well. Yes, it may be an extra $400, but as the Michelin commercial says, you got a lot riding on your tires. Isn't your life more important than $300-400? Hey, this is James Morris. We'll be right back. I don't know who's going to be calling, but maybe you'll call. Give us a call, 850-763-0555, and we'll be right back.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Router Plumbing. Sink, shower and toilet emergency drain services.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers who in turn can take care of their customers.
Drains, things like that, because you really don't need a plumber until you really need a plumber. Same thing about a mechanic. No one thinks about needing a mechanic till the car goes out there and they turn the key and nothing happens. I've had that happened yesterday. Matter of fact, someone from the plumbing company came by yesterday for Mr. Reuter, and their complaint was, I'll go out to start my car and the battery's dead. I have to jump it off. I go, okay. I said, what do you think's wrong? I mean, what seems to be the problem? When does it happen? How does it happen? It happens in the morning when I go to start the car. The car sits all night. I go to start it, and it won't start. It just goes click. And I have to get someone, and we jump it off, and the car starts. And I said, it sounds like you might not have a dead battery. I said, let me check your battery out. Well, now remember, we've talked about this before. Alternators do not charge up dead batteries. They will maintain a charge. They will give a charge to it. Yes, they will charge it up some, but they're not going to charge it up where it needs to be. If you start a battery off at 12.30 volts with an alternator, at the end of the day, you got 12.30 volts. It didn't get any higher. Alternators are designed to maintain the charge. So what ends up happening is the customer says, I got a dead battery. He jumps it off. He puts extra current, gets more amperage. The car starts up. I suspect that I did a charging system analysis, and I did a battery analysis, and I did a starter analysis. And what I noticed was, I said 2 hours ago, you said this car was dead. Yes. Well, your battery is fully charged at 13.2 volts. I said, there's nothing. I said, I don't think your battery was dead. And I said, what I have noticed is your charging system's working fine. I do notice there's no parasitic drain. We cut the car off and waited 30 minutes and checked it out. You got 45 milliamps of draw, which is acceptable. Up to 50 milliamps is acceptable. Out of 1,000 milliamps to make an amp, we're allowed to have 0.050 milliamps. That's all we're allowed to have on a vehicle. Out of 1,000 milliamps, you can have 50 that keeps the memory and your savings on your clock and your radio stations alive. Keeps that in memory. That's what that's for. You know, your driving habits, keep alive memory. That's what that 0.050 is worth. 50 milliamps. That's this keep alive memory, and it keeps it in there, and it's allowed to have that. Anything more than that will drain the battery down in short order. So we know that wasn't a problem. So I said, so tell me what it does. Well, I crank the car in the morning, go to crank it, and it's dead. Have to jump it off. It goes click. I said, here's what I want you to do. I don't think you got a problem, but I've watched the starter. When it cranks over, I got a record on your car, and normally when the starter cranks over, the voltage drops below 10 volts. I said, but what I've noticed on this time, it didn't drop below 10.5 volts. So according to the records that I've had on this car for the last 2 or 3 years, when your car cranks on the starter, it drops below 10 volts, which is normal. I like it between 9.5 to 10, but today when I checked it, it didn't even drop below 10. I mean, I got down to not even 10 volts. It didn't quite make 10 volts down. So it only had dropped down to about 10.5 volts, somewhere in that general area. And I said, I don't see anything wrong, but I suspect the starter might be your problem. So tomorrow morning, if it won't start, hold it over in the start position. Have someone, while you're holding in the crank position, tap the starter. Don't beat it. Just tap it gently with a screwdriver or something and see if it tries to start. In a lot of cases, when cars have high mileage on them, and they just go click, and there's no other problem. The customer thinks it's a bad alternator, bad battery, or whatever. It's the starter itself is just wore out, and it needs to be changed. And so if you ever get one that won't start, and you have to jump it off, and so before you jump it off, if you can, turn your headlights on. See if your headlights are bright. If your headlights are bright, there's probably nothing wrong with your battery or your connection. Turn the headlights on, make sure they're on bright, try to start the car. If the lights dim significantly, well, you got a problem there. That's pretty obvious. But if it goes click and there's no dimming of the lights, my money is going to be on the starter. That's exactly what starter relay, something with the starter's got a bad connection or got a voltage drop. So just go tap the starter while you're holding it in the start position. And sometimes that'll get you out of a bind to get you to a shop to get it fixed. So that's just a little help out there for you guys out there that sometimes go, is it a starter or is it an alternator or is it a battery? That's a little help out there. Now, the other thing is, if you want to get technical, we can do voltage drops. But that's another show all in itself to talk about voltage drops, because a lot of people just have a hard time using a digital voltometer to figure a voltage drop out. So I talk about using headlights. You use a headlight to take the place of your starter. You use a headlight to take the place of your window motor. You use a headlight to take the place of anything on your car that's actuated by 12 volts. If you got 12 volts that turned on your EGR valve, well, rig it where that headlight has a ground and 12 volts that powers up. Make sure that wire has got enough, can carry the amperage. Make sure you got a good ground on it too. A lot of times you'll find out the grounds are the problem, not the voltage, it's the grounds. You don't have a good ground due to corrosion, especially here on the Gulf Coast. We have lots of corrosion, lots of salt air, and it doesn't take long before it gets to things and stops them from working. I have so many people that bring me cars and they had everybody change part after part after part after part after part. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this, part after part after part after part. And I look at it and I go, so you changed this fuel pump 4 times now? Yep. Well, let's do a little trick here. So what I do, while the car is here with the customer, I go to where the fuel pump is. I disconnect the wires. I put a headlight in. Just, steel beam headlight or halogen headlight, one that draws 12 amps when it comes on. I go crank the car. When I go to crank the car, the light gets bright for about a split second. And then it's just dull, just a dim, it's there, it's glowing, but it's not bright. And I said, I think I found your problem. He says, what do you mean? I said, you got a voltage drop either on the positive or negative side. I can tell you in just a minute if it's the positive or the negative side. So I'll take the negative side and I'll ground it to the frame, a good frame. And all of a sudden I got a bright light. Sometimes that tells you the negative side. Sometimes I'll take that negative side, that doesn't make any changes whatsoever. I'll put it right back, it doesn't change. So I'll put it to a good positive, the feedback on it, go to another connection at the line and find out where my voltage drop is, and it'll get nice and bright. I'll find out there's a connection somewhere, maybe in the fuse block. I've seen that in fuse blocks. Boy, have I seen that in fuse blocks over the years. Woohoo! Boy, have I, especially when it comes to getting the 12 volts. On the fuse block on a General Motors, where General Motors, they put the fuse box together where the male fits into the female, it gets overheated and expands, and you get bad contact or intermittent contact, especially on the Chevy vans. 2011, woo, I have seen that on 2011s and 12s and 13s. Very common problem of intermittent fuel pump operation. Some days the cars will start and run just perfect, and some days they just crank and crank and crank and crank and crank and crank and crank, and they can't ever get them to run. They drag them to a shop, and now the car starts. And they scratch their head and go, must be a fuel pump. Well, 4 fuel pumps later, they put it in there and go, well, it must not be a fuel pump. Must be something else causing this. $1,000 a fuel pump gets pretty expensive. So that's what I tell people when I have a problem like that, when I have a problem like an intermittent fuel pump failure problem, and I know it's got a good fuel pump in it, I will put a headlight. I will put a headlight underneath the car. I will put it where they can't see it. And when the car acts up, I'll say, okay, I want you to look underneath the car. I tell them when I do this, I said, see if that headlight when you're cranking the car is bright. And they go, what red light? I said, just by the gas tank. I've got one nice and insulated up there, but you can see it. It's not going to hurt anything. I want to see if there's power going to it. And 9 out of 10 times they're coming back, I crank the car and I don't see a light. I said, thank you. So when I get the car towed back in, I don't even tow the car. I'll go take a look at it a lot of times, because once you tow it and pick it up and set it down, that's normally when it starts working. And I'll take a look at it and go, okay, I'm not getting any power back here. I got a good ground. I can see I got a good ground. There's nothing wrong with my ground. I'm not getting any power. Why am I not getting any power? Is it the power? Is it the relay? So I'll go and look at the relay. Is the relay working? So the relay is working. So somewhere between the relay and the fuel pump, I'm not getting any power. Is it the fuse block? Possibility. Is it the splice? Is it a connection? That's how you determine where it is. If you keep replacing the same fuel pump over and over again, thinking that maybe you're just getting defective fuel pumps, after the second one, you really need to stop. I mean, the odds of getting more than 2 in a row it does happen. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I see new NEW, never ever worked. I've seen that happen more times, but I have also seen it when you get more than 2 in there, I don't think you're going to get 2 in a row that's going to be faulty. It can happen. I don't think it happens that often. But fuel pumps, the biggest killer of fuel pumps is bad grounds. Voltage drops where you're not getting a full 12 volts from the battery and the fuse block area to the fuel pump. It'll run on 11 volts, not very long. And you get about 6 months. That's about all you're going to get. You'll get enough volume, you'll get enough pressure, and the fuel pump will work for about 6 months. But that low voltage, 11 volts, remember, it's designed for 12 volts and higher, 12 and a half, 13 volts, 14 volts. but it'll run on 11 volts. It won't run very long. Like I said, 6 months. It'll get overheated and finally that's it. It stops. And then you put another fuel pump in. Can't believe my third fuel pump in 2 years. Just like alternators. I hear that all the time. My alternator's gone out. This is the fourth one in 2 years. They just don't commit suicide. There's got to be a reason. Either you're doing it by draining the battery down, by leaving the radio on, then jumping it off or something, or letting the car go dead at night, or I don't know what you're doing, and then jump it off without charging the battery up. That's a surefire killer of an alternator. You do that, you'll kill that alternator. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it's going to die real soon. Do not jump a car off with it. If you're going to jump a car that's completely dead off, jump it off and let it sit there for about 15, 20 minutes charging. Both cars charging. That way when you pull the battery cables off, you don't spike the alternator on both of them. You'll spike both alternators, the one that's charging you, that started you up, and the car itself. Because now you're really putting a load on that alternator to charge up that completely dead battery. That's why I say leave both of them hooked up. Being proactive will save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, and it'll keep you from having to buy a car every few years. I have some people I see out there, they don't do anything to their cars except drive them. And then 4 years later, they wonder why they got a car that's ready to go to the salvage yard. I mean, they have tires that have no tread on them. They got front ends that are wore out. They got brakes that scrub and growl. They got engine that leaks oil. They got an engine that probably makes noise too. I see that a lot. And when I fuss at them, I say, when was the last time you changed your oil? And they say, when it gets low, I add oil. Well, that tells me that you really don't care about keeping this car alive. And that's the reality. And sometimes I don't let customers come in here that don't take care of their cars. If you're not going to take care of your car, I know what I want to do. I'm going to end up trying to take care of the car for you in a losing battle. If you want me to, I'll work with you and do it. But please, I need help with your car. Pay attention to the noises your car makes, the smells your car makes, the leaks your car have, and let your technician know about them. That's the only way he can help you out. And when you get an oil change, make sure you're getting an oil change and inspection, not just an oil change and filter. Too many people out there think an oil change and filter is the same as getting an inspection. Not even close. You can do oil changes in 15, 20 minutes if that's all you're doing is dropping oil and dropping a filter in it. 15, 20 minutes. It takes about an hour. For me, I can go through a car, if I'm not being bothered by anybody, in about 35 minutes. I can go through a car, do an inspection, oil change about 35 minutes. But I'm the owner, I'm the boss. I've been doing this for a long time. Most of my employees takes about 45 to 50 minutes for them to do. Well, I've been doing it a lot longer than they have, and I know a lot of the shortcuts. Try to train them that, but that's how it works. But I'm an old guy, so I have certain things I've learned over the years. But it takes, on average, about an hour to do a complete inspection and an oil change. Anyone that says they can inspect your car and do it for you for $29.95 and do an oil change for all that, ask them to show you the inspection that they did. Or did they just pencil whip it? The big difference between pencil whipping one and actually inspecting it. Ask them to show you the front end. Ask them to show you the ball joints. I guarantee you, if you got a car that's got more than 60 to 80,000 miles on it and you haven't, and your tires are wearing funny, you've probably got a wore out front end part. And if they don't catch it, that's what they need to do. That's what the purpose of oil changes is for, is to inspect parts and find parts that are faulty and can be dangerous to you to continue driving. Hey, this is James Morris. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.